So the next session is our duos. So we have our student staff partnership duos, and we're going to start off with Kate Goodman and Ashley McKenna. So Kate Goodman is the Vice President for DCU Students' Union Academic Life. She's the primary student representative for academic affairs, working with work-based learning, placement, Erasmus, and so much more, and is of course responsible for the continued development of the student representation system in DCU, working with all of the appropriate bodies both within the institution and of course the extended student body. Ashley McKenna is the DCU Director for Quality Promotion and Institutional Research in DCU. She's worked in the higher education sector since 2007, and her current work is focused on promoting and supporting and facilitating continuous quality improvement activities across the academic and administration units across the university. So without further ado, I might hand straight over to you and in you sharing your case studies and ideas for good practice with us.
Megan, we might have to go in a different order.
Absolutely. Will we start with Celine and Kathryn? Is Kathryn here?
Yes, very happy to. Yeah, absolutely.
That's perfect.
Perfect. So Kathryn Hanley is a third-year graduate entry medicine student from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and is recipient of 2 RCSI student engagement and partnership grants for which she represented the Represent project, which is the Revising Medical Education for Progress Against Racism Through Education, Skill Sets and Empowerment, and the Going Gold project, developing on Gold Humanism Honour Society at RCSI, which is incredible. And then Celine is a professor in bioinorganic chemistry in RCSI at University of Medicine and Health Sciences, and is also the current president of the Institute of Chemistry in Ireland, the national body representing all chemists in Ireland. So thank you so much for being with us today. I might just hand over to you, just talking about your partnership, student and staff engagement in RCSI, and your ideas for good practice.
Thank you very much, Megan. Kate, I can't actually see you, but I'm hoping you're there with us as well. You're here, okay. If I can just share, there's Kate, if I can just share my slides. We've put a joint presentation together, so if you just bear with me, please. Can you just confirm, Megan, that you can see the slides there?
We can indeed, they're perfect.
Okay, that's super, thank you. So if I can just begin by saying good morning, everybody. First of all, congratulations to Oisín and team on the launch of this really important strategy today. Kate and I are delighted to be co-presenting here this morning. Our thanks to Oisín and to the NStEP team for giving us this wonderful opportunity. It will be a whirlwind tour, really, to showcase what RCSI is doing to drive a university-wide culture of student engagement and partnership across all that we do. I will aim to highlight some key enablers from a staff perspective, and Kate will talk about some of the merits of student partnership from a student perspective. So just to provide a little bit of context, back in 2018, RCSI, I guess, had the foresight to include student partnership as a key strategy enabler as part of its 4-year strategic plan from 2018 to 2022. And arising from this, my own appointment as Deputy Dean for Student Engagement was established, really to try and drive and embed a universal culture of partnership across all that we do in RCSI. We very quickly convened a student engagement and partnership committee, and we made a strategic decision very early on that we would be inclusive of all of our undergraduate schools, medicine, pharmacy and physiotherapy, but also be inclusive of our School of Postgraduate Studies. We then took quite a bit of time actually to define what student partnership looked like in the context of RCSI. And we wanted to explicitly call out that true and authentic partnership equally values the expertise and perspectives of both our students and staff. And that by working collaboratively, we can really drive positive changes across our community to enhance the overall student experience. We then sought to benchmark our practices within RCSI around student engagement and partnership to those in other national and international institutions. And we did this in a number of ways, not least reviewing the literature, but also taking the time out to visit other national and international universities. And this ultimately led us to develop a student engagement and partnership framework. And we could have focused our attention on just teaching and learning, but we were quite ambitious in our approach and looked to identify ways in which we could partner and promote student partnership with respect to key decision-making and institutional management, our research community, as well as our wider local community and social environment. And you can see here that surrounding the framework, that the framework is underpinned by guiding principles which we consider to be best practice around student engagement and partnership. Identifying gaps in our own practices was a crucial step in our journey, and it really led us to establish annual student engagement and partnership agreements. And these are formal agreements between RCSI and our SU and postgraduate SU teams. These agreements really help to focus our attention on key student-staff partnership projects that we wish to advance in any given academic year. And you can see we've launched 3 of these annual agreements to date. A significant enabler in driving a culture of student partnership across RCSI was the launch of our Student Engagement and Partnership Project Funding Programme in 2020. Level 1 project funding allows students and staff to work collaboratively on key projects for 10 weeks during semester 2 of each academic year, where student contact hours are capped at 3 hours per week, being mindful of their academic loads. Level 2 project funding is more substantial. It supports student-staff partnership projects for 8 weeks full-time during the summer months, typically in June and July, allowing students the latitude in August, obviously, to take a break and rest. And common to both funding programs is the fact that we have open calls for project applications each year, where students and staff can submit applications. And we've seen from the get-go that they can submit them independently, and in fact often will co-develop projects and submit collectively. Project applications are reviewed by a panel of students and staff. We have formal induction and closing ceremonies each year. And critically important from our perspective is that students receive financial support in the form of student bursaries. And this really recognises the fact that we are availing of the expertise of our students as learners and tapping into their perspectives as students on the ground. And as a testament to our definition and valuing the contributions of our students and staff, each receive an RCSI Student Partnership Champion Award certificate and digital badge upon successfully completing these projects. Finally, you can see some representative examples shown on the left of this slide. But just to highlight, I guess, from an institution-wide perspective, I cannot put into words the impact that these projects are having at all levels across RCSI. There have been 27 STEP level 1 projects and 5 level 2 projects funded to date. And we envisage another 6 to 8 level 2 projects being funded over this summer. Projects are currently under review. We're delighted that 108 students and 53 staff have already received recognition for sharing their expertise and perspectives and working collaboratively on RCSI projects in the form of the RCSI Student Partnership Award certificates. The caliber of the project applications and the creativity and innovations being proposed by our students and staff are simply outstanding. And the project outputs are resulting in significant developments across all that we are doing in RCSI. And I've no doubt that students, staff, and the RCSI community are benefiting as a result. Kate and I are very happy to answer any questions and to go into the projects in more detail. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over now to Kate, who will give a student perspective on our student engagement and partnership program. So thank you very much.
Perfect, thanks, Celine. So I am Kate Haley. I am a 3rd year graduate entry medicine student at RCSI, and I have been fortunate enough to engage in 3 STEP projects to date and cannot speak enough good words about it. So this will be just a bit more of an anecdotal explanation of the student perspective and the merits of student-staff partnership from the student perspective. So I'm not sure. So I think what struck me most when I first heard about the STEP program at RCSI was just how much it inverts the power dynamic in academia. So it gives students a seat at the table and allows students to engage in institutional change with the necessary support from faculty. So essentially you have kind of the innovative perspective coming from the student and then the expertise coming from the faculty enabling progression of the project. And I think this does cultivate an academic culture wherein students feel that they do have agency in institutional reform in the university. And I guess, again, just to speak to motivation for engaging in STEP projects, I think initially for myself and many other students, providing that STEP bursary to the students as we do value your contributions and it is motivating. And then I think personally for me, once I had engaged in the project, that experience of kind of gaining some advocacy and some power at an institutional level absolutely motivated me to just continue on, bursary or no bursary. So next slide, please. So this is just some background on the first project I proposed, which is the Represent project. And the motivation for this project was largely motivated by conversations with peers as a result of having experienced the pre-clinical curriculum at RCSI. So the current paucity of clinical images representing clinical presentations on BAME skin tones in the RCSI curriculum is what sort of sparked the idea to propose this project in the first place. And the rationale was that increased representation of clinical images on BAME skin tones will better prepare students to accurately recognize and diagnose medical conditions in a diverse global patient population, as at RCSI we have a very international student body. So as you can see on the right, just as an illustrative example, we have Kawasaki disease, which looks vastly different on white skin tones versus BAME skin tones. So we would think that this is impacting patient care, and conversation amongst peers, there was a lot of concern that this was an issue in the curriculum at present. So the aims of the project were to generate lecture slides with clinical images on dark and white skin tones to be directly incorporated into lectures, to then run a staff tutorial on the importance of increasing representation in lectures, and then to administer student and staff surveys to assess student satisfaction and staff knowledge following implementation of the project. So then just to kind of review some of the results with you. So on the left, you can see an example of a tick bite, and these were the slides that were generated to be directly incorporated into clinical lectures for graduate entry RCSI students, where we see clinical presentations on both dark and white skin tones. So over 120 lecture slides were generated to be directly incorporated. A staff tutorial was developed to further educate staff on the importance of increasing representation in lecture slides. And then in terms of quantifying change, we found that there was an increase from 2% of clinical images shown on dark skin tones prior to implementation of the project up to 18% of clinical images shown on dark skin tones post-implementation of the project. And then just to further highlight advantages of engaging in the STEP program, this actually resulted in myself and my staff partner, Dr. Avril Hutch, being able to publish a rapid report in the All Ireland Journal of Higher Education and Learning, and also excitingly recently received grant funding from INED as a research and medical education grant to extend the project to UCC and UL. So this really is becoming an inter-institutional STEP project, which is really nice to see. I guess just to highlight as well, so Celine mentioned we've had over 30 STEP projects at RCSI to date, and my voice is just one of the many student perspectives, but it's collectively very positive. So just to highlight a few, so Tim Vaughan describes his experience with STEP and says, the result, a vibrant and collaborative workspace of equitable partnership where I felt heard, had mutual trust, and was treated as a colleague. And equally, Therese Len said, it was heartening to see that students' voices were listened to and the student perspective was fully respected and appreciated, working alongside staff in a true partnership. And next slide, please. So just to summarize, I really do think, this is kind of a better together approach. And I can't speak enough good of Professor Marmion in championing this at RCSI. So I think with lived experience of the curriculum, students do bring a fresh perspective on institutional change. And this really has fostered an institutional culture where staff do appreciate and value the perspective of the student, making students feel heard. I've really been overwhelmed by the amount of not just my personal staff partner, but collectively all faculty at RCSI being so supportive and encouraging of this project and further developing the STEP project just beyond the realms of the initial proposal itself. And then finally, it is nice to be recognized formally with the RCSI Student Partnership Championship Award. I think you really do feel heard. And I can say personally, I'm an older graduate entry medicine student, so I've experienced academia in the States and in the UK, and I honestly have not experienced anything like this elsewhere. So I can't speak enough good about it. So just thanks again to Prof. Marmion for championing it. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Celine and Kate. That is absolutely brilliant. And I have so many questions for you, but I might just hold on to them for a couple of moments and come back to you afterwards. So we are going to go to our second case studies, which are going to be presented to us by Peter and Aisling. So Peter Attridge is a third-year chemical and biopharmaceutical engineering student in MTU. He originally started off doing common entry engineering and then chose chemical engineering at the end of his first year. And he's one of the student consultants working with Aisling on the RAF project. And Aisling O'Gorman is a chemical engineer and is the program coordinator for the honours bachelor's degree in chemical and biopharmaceutical engineering in MTU. So I might just hand over to you straight away to tell us about your experience in partnership and your good practices. And I will just remind everyone that if you do have any questions from that last presentation or this one, hold on to them, pop them into the chat, and we will come back to them together at the end.
All right, good morning, everybody, from a sunny Cork. It's nice to hear the perspectives that have been put forward already. So we're looking forward to bringing you up to speed on the work that we're doing. So I'm just going to share my screen here now. All right, so this is a case study, I suppose, showing student engagement in the curriculum. And I'm just going to introduce myself. So hi again, I'm Aisling. And Peter, do you want to say a quick hi there?
Yeah, how's it going? I'm Peter, I'm third year chemical engineering student, sorry.
Yeah, so we're both involved in the BN John's chemical and biopharmaceutical engineering degree. So to give you a bit of background, I'm going to start off with myself and kind of give you my perspective on the work we've been doing, and then Peter's going to take over from me. So I suppose to give you an idea of some of the work that's been done in this space in MTU, I've been involved in two projects. So last year I was involved in a project called BALI, which is building, it's an initiative in building assessment literacy. And I was working with another member of academic staff, not from my department, in partnership with two students, again, not from my department. And we had different groups working on different areas, but the area we were working on was feedback. Is anyone listening? So again, I suppose that for me, that comes from, you're spending all of this time, trying to help your students engage and perform better with your feedback, and you're not always sure that that feedback is being listened to or taken on board. So that's where I started off. And then the project I'm currently involved in, and this case study covers, is the RAFT project. Which is reimagining assessment and feedback together. And for me, it's the together there that's really important. So my research question, if you like, is, does a learning plan enhance student engagement and performance in a capstone engineering laboratory module? So we're looking at a specific module within the curriculum. So the module itself, it's kind of a classical engineering practical. We divide the class up into teams of 3 and they work their way through a series of practicals. They'll have covered the theory in other modules, and they're getting the practical experience of engaging with the equipment in the lab. And the assessment elements are broken up into what we call a pre-lab, where the students have to prepare a whole area around the safety and risk assessment. They have to work up their materials and methods, and then I suppose have a quick look at their theory in advance of doing the practical. And then afterwards, then the two main submission types would either be a classical report or a poster. And you can see there I have an example of the rubric that we would use for the poster. So that's the way we would have worked with it. We give advice, we brief the students on our expectations, we have a lab manual, and we provide resources then through our learning management system as well. So that would be the way, the status quo, if you like. So what I did then with the project was, at the start of the module, explain to the students, I suppose, my motivation for being involved with the project and what I wanted to do. And I'm not going to read now through all of the items I have there, but I was trying just to explain to the students, where I really wanted them to go with the module, and to get them to recognize, those different skills and competencies that we would hope that they would develop and improve on over the module. And I'm going to just highlight the one in the middle there, the lifelong learning. Yes.
So sorry to interrupt you. Unfortunately, your slides aren't moving for us.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Right. Anything happening there? No, Megan?
Unfortunately not, no.
All right. Will I stop sharing and I'll just try again, will I?
I think that might be good. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Can you see that all right?
We can see your first slide.
Only the first one. Okay. It's not moving on at all, no?
Unfortunately not, no. If you have a copy of it, if you want to email it over quickly, we can share it.
Just see now.
We were listening to you though, Aisling.
All right, okay, thanks very much. Sorry about this has never happened to me before now. What I might just try and do is just see.
I think if you set it to slideshow.
How's that? Is that any better now?
You can see it out. Yes.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone.
Thanks,
okay. So this was the one I was in full flight with. These are, the different skills, competence areas that I wanted the students to recognize and try and work on. And as I said, in the middle there, I've got the lifelong learning. And for me, it's really about the students taking charge of their learning, taking responsibility for it. So I had an initial consultation session with 4 of our 4th year students who had completed the module last year. And they were able to give me some really good advice. We were able to talk through what I wanted to do, and I come up with this tool, which is a learning plan. And you can see there's 3 sections to it. The first part is where I wanted each student team to identify areas of weaknesses that they wanted to work on. The second part then is where they'd propose strategies that they were going to implement to work on them. And then at the end, then there was a reflection piece where each student individually reflected on how it had all gone and where they would have rated themselves. And Peter will talk a bit more about this later on. And just in terms of sessions that we've had, of the class of about 30, 16 students have agreed to be consultants working with me. And we've had one feedback session to date where we've looked at how things have gone so far. So I have an example of the Jamboard there, and we're really working towards a second session, and you can see from the feedback matrix there, we've done an initial assessment of the tool, and the next session then is really going to focus on co-creation, where we could go with the tool. Do we continue with it? Do we throw it out? Do we do something else? So I'm looking forward to working with the students now to develop that further. So I'm now going to pass on to Peter.
I'll just go to the next slide there, please.
Yeah, sure.
So when we were first given the project, I suppose, on our first lab session, I kind of saw it as an opportunity to kind of improve on my skills, because my main focus, I suppose, is my research project and my design project for final year. So I thought it was a very good opportunity to kind of improve on the skills that I will have to do on my own. I can't be really relying on people for next year to get through my final research project. And I also felt that I was maybe slightly behind my team members in my lab. So I saw it as a great opportunity to kind of catch up to them and provide meaningful help and not kind of be carried through the module. So I thought that was great. Just the next slide there.
Yep.
The learning plan then, you can kind of see the template to the right there, but we chose roughly 3 to 5 skills each week. Some of the skills were kind of mentioned earlier there. I saw a diagram of them, but like some of the skills a group member might have already been strong at, and then another group member might be slightly weaker at that skill. So we thought it was a great opportunity to kind of work together and kind of work as a team to improve the skills and help each other along. And there wasn't really ever an instance where there was one student who was strong at everything, like, so everyone had their weaknesses each week. So everyone was able to work together, and there was no kind of a level difference in that sense. I'll just go to the next slide. With the reflection, then you can see the template to the left again. At the end, so this was kind of done after we got back our results. So we could see, based on our results and how we felt, how we kind of improved, or we mightn't have made any improvements on certain skills some weeks. So what we did with that was we kind of brought up the skill again, so that by the end of the semester we had made some improvements on each skill. And like the ones that we did make improvements on, like you can kind of see the green color there, that's kind of, if everyone made an improvement on, that was never really the case because of how the skills might be split. Like one student might be doing Excel on a practical, like all the results doing the Excel side of things, and another student mightn't. So that would come up another week, and the other student would take the Excel. So even if there was improvements made, there was further improvements to be made. Like no one was kind of perfect at a skill, so it was kind of brought up again. Just next slide, please. What did I take away from the experience? I thought it was an excellent opportunity to kind of improve on some of the essential skills that'll help me for next year, and in placement that I start in June. And like, I mean, in my career in general, like there are some very important skills that'll help me in my career. It allowed the group to bond while working together. Like my group had a kind of great time kind of working together at improving the skills. It kind of showed as well in like my results from last year to this year. I feel like I made a great improvement, and I feel like the learning plan was a big reason for that. It gave me the opportunity as well, like I was saying earlier, to kind of catch up to my teammates and not be kind of carried through the module and give like meaningful help to the team. Next slide, please. Just any additional points then, like it is kind of up to the student how much they want to apply to the learning plan, like how much they gain from it. So if a student kind of saw it as an extra piece of work that is just on the end of their lab each week, then they mightn't make much improvements from it. But I personally felt that I made like very good improvements throughout the semester, like because I really applied the learning plan and tried to focus each week on improving on those skills. So my main advice would be for students to kind of participate fully in the activity, as like there's a lot to gain from it. Yeah, next slide. And then the co-creation sessions that Aisling was on about, we already did the first one, and the feedback was mostly good. Obviously some challenges came up and areas to improve, but mostly students kind of gained from the experience, which was very good. We also thought it was like very good to see that students were being kind of included in the discussion on how the learning plan would be structured for next year for the second years coming forward. So we thought that was great for like a student-friendly environment. So yeah, the next session now is the 16th on. We'll be kind of discussing how the learning plan should actually be set up for next year, like the fourth years did coming into this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both, for your time, and it sounds like just a fantastic project. So we might hold off on questions just for now. We'll go to our next group, and then we will come back. So if people do have their questions, please do hold on to them, pop them into the chat, and we'll come back to them in just a few moments. So thanks so much, Aisling and Peter. So we might move back again to Aisling and Kate. So Kate is the Vice President for DCU Students' Union for Academic Life, actually as the primary student representative there, and Aisling McKenna is the DCU Director for Quality Promotion and Institutional Research at DCU. DCU. So I might hand straight over to you guys so you can let us know about your good practice and your experience working in partnership.
Thank you so much. I just want to check before I can start that you can see our slides.
We can indeed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really enjoying the session so much already, largely because, well, our case study is very different. They've all been, and I think it's a wonderful discussion on how partnership lives in so many different domains, and the creativity of institutions and their approach towards embedding partnership is really very inspiring. And so this is just a small, again, a different, but I suppose a case study around how staff-student partnership is working in one of the domains at DCU. My name is Celine McKenna. I'm the Director of Quality Promotion and Institutional Research at DCU. And I'm joined today, co-presenting this by Kate Goodman, who's the Vice President for Academic Life in DCU Students' Union. I just wanted to start off, first of all, we'll cover three things. I want to take you through a little bit about the history of DCU's participation in NStEP, and in particular, the workshop elements, both institutional analysis and a student partnership framework, or student partnership workshop in 2020. I want to show you a little bit about the outputs of those particular pieces of work. And then Kate is going to talk a little bit about how, I suppose, we're walking the walk in terms of the student staff partnership framework in relation to staff student forums which take place at DCU, and how these integrate and impact on decision making and progress at DCU. I suppose to start off with a very brief history about our involvement with NStEP. I think DCU joined in the kind of second wave of entrants to NStEP and the NStEP program. And in 2017, we signed up. And the first piece of work that we did, not only in terms of the involvement of our students with the training program offered by NStEP, we participated in institutional analysis in 2018, a really valuable process for us to do. Particularly given that DCU was entering into its Kinshasa review, and the institutional analysis piece formed a really important part of us, not only telling the story of student representation, particularly around quality improvement and quality enhancement and decision making, but also as part of a gap analysis, but also a really great opportunity for us to start thinking about further opportunities for engagement in a way that was both meaningful and authentic to DCU. And that resulted in a pilot of staff-student forums in their first instance, an experimentation to see if this particular model would work. And Kate will talk more about how that particular model now works in 2022. But second of all, we participated then in a second workshop in 2020, a supported workshop which was facilitated by Oisín and the team. It took place on the 10th of March, and just before the campus closed down to deal with the COVID emergency. But it was really focused on this idea of how could we make student-staff partnership really work at DCU, where we felt it lived, what its values would be, and so on. And that's what I want to focus on today. So as I said, the staff student workshop took place on the 10th of March. Kate, who was then, I think, a faculty rep for the business school, actually took part in that forum as well. And I had a look back at some of the minutes, and people were being really smart about COVID at that time. And in one of the breakout rooms, there was a team called COVID-9 team, who had got together as one of the breakout sessions. We were so innocent back then in terms of what we thought the impact of COVID would be. The workshop had equal membership between both staff and students, and it was in the form of an away day. And there were 4 goals from that session. We wanted to look at partnership. What is it? What does it mean at DCU, and what would it authentically mean at DCU? And then from a much more practical perspective, how we would get there and what values would underpin those actions. And those were the 4 goals for the day. And we had teams working on starting to describe that. And so I want to just briefly take you through what resulted in terms of a partnership framework. For us, we saw the partnership focused in this instance, and others will be different, on three particular aspects of staff-student engagement. One was around student representation, where it happened and what it meant in a very meaningful sense. In terms of feedback and dialogue between staff and students. And then this idea of co-creation, as in the last case study, but staff-student activities and where we would envisage those happening. So the framework specified a number of domains in which we saw staff-student partnership being grounded. There were only 4 values that we identified. Well, there were many others, but 4 key ones: that partnership would be open, would be inclusive, would be collegial, and most importantly, would be ambitious in terms of what it set out to achieve. And in being ambitious, I suppose we recognized the need for ongoing and continual capacity building among both staff and students in order to be able to make the framework work. And the framework was proposed, first of all, discussed, refined, and agreed by DCU Quality Promotion Committee, and then went forward to the DCU Executive and was approved in early 2021. And the management and development of the framework now sits with the Deputy President of the university, who has responsibility not only for the faculties at DCU and executive responsibilities for the faculties, but also for student support and development, and indeed the quality agenda at DCU as well. And then finally, just before I hand over to Kate, I just want to talk about the areas where I think we have made particular change or particular impact. So where have we prioritized the staff-student framework and partnership framework? There have been a number of changes in relation to how we manage quality reviews. DCU, although I think we have a very strong model for student representation, did not have a student reviewer as a full member of peer review teams for quality reviews. The framework enabled and I suppose set down a sense of value for staff-student partnership that enabled from January 2021 that all of our quality reviews would include as a full reviewer, a student reviewer in all of our quality reviews. Kate will talk more about staff-student forums. But another key aspect is how staff and students really work very closely together, in particular, the university and the Students' Union in co-leading and co-facilitating the orientation and university transitions activities, particularly for entering undergraduate first years. So I'm going to hand over to Kate now and to talk in a little bit more detail about the staff-student forums.
Thank you so much, Aisling. Yeah, so our staff-student forums, they meet twice a semester for each of our faculties to discuss a wide range of issues that our students are facing. So who's in attendance at these discussions? So it's an SU representative, mostly myself, students, of course, from the faculties, academic staff, and Quality Promotions Office, so Aisling or Jing normally, and then head of leadership again will be there as well. Next slide, please. So we believe in the SU that in comparison to any other channel that the SU have in relation to feedback with the university, that this forum is most effective. And we believe this is the case because it is a collaborative approach with the Qualities Promotion Office, Aisling's team, and the SU, and that brings buy-in from academic staff, which results in active change, which our students obviously benefit from straight away. So some of our biggest successes from staff-student forums is an additional week in semester 2 for all students. We have guaranteed and secured this for all students. In previous years, our science, engineering, computing students simply didn't have a reading week, which is basically a midterm break halfway through the semester. Those courses are obviously very intense, lots of lab work. So we really pushed at these forums to bring about this break that our students really wanted for their well-being, but also their studying just to catch up. Also longer opening hours, be that for the library. Sorry, the slide's gone, Aisling. Longer opening hours, be that for the library or just buildings in general. I know our U building after a student staff forum got extended opening hours, and again this is for our students to work on their assignments in whatever environment they most thrive in. Some students love the quietness of the library, some love the hustle and bustle of our students union building. And then obviously I'm sure every university and college in Ireland experiences problem, just that assignments, deadlines are all bunched at the end of the semester. So again, that's not very helpful for our students learning. So this was brought up at the staff student forums and addressed and spaced out more appropriately, which is great to see. And then last and finally not least, comfortable chairs. This might seem like the smallest of our successes, but it's what our students talk about the most. Our nursing school building had notoriously hard chairs, so we got them fixed with a seat, which is great to see. Next slide, please. So our faculty reps, which Aisling said before, have a huge involvement in our staff student forums. Often they're very engaged students, both academically and socially. They hear from class reps most often about the local issues, so they know exactly what issues need to be talked about first. They can lead the assignment or the discussion, and finally they recruit the students to engage in these discussions. Again, mostly engaged students within campus life. So yeah, the staff student forum also provides a space for the students to say what didn't work during their time in DCU. So during COVID, students really didn't like breakout rooms, so they said that. 10-week semester, students really felt like they weren't getting enough time to get through content. I know staff felt the same. And then also it was raised at a staff student forums that especially first years were continuously put in the same groups due to they were bunched in groups due to alphabetical order, and lecturers didn't know that everyone was doing that, so it ended up that all students were in the same group always. So because of discussions at the staff student forum, this changed around and allowed students to meet new people and engage in different projects with different group members. And then finally, it also gives staff an opportunity to get something back. So staff can ask questions to their students, branch ideas about engagement in class with them. I know this year, low attendance in class has been a real issue. So again, I've given an opportunity for staff to go to students in a safe, comfortable environment and ask them what they can do to improve attendance and engagement and so forth. Next slide. So limitations, obviously, there's going to be some limitations. So firstly, our faculty reps, they volunteer for the SU, they do not get paid. They're still full-time students. So sometimes we feel that the staff student forums may be a little bit too much of an extra workload on these students. Also, a big issue that we have found is differing engagements between faculties. Specifically, we noted that our Institute of Education has particularly low engagement rates of students attending our staff student forums. We believe there's multiple reasons. Education students have a high placement element to their degree, so they're often off campus. They also mostly attend a smaller separate campus. That is, we as a university in general find hard to engage with our bigger campus in Glasnevin. It's something I know the university as a whole is working on. And then relevant staff, sometimes students bring up issues and the relevant staff aren't there to address it or answer it. But mostly our assistant dean for teaching and learning can go back to the right staff member and get an answer or a solution for that problem that's raised. Recruitment, often, like I said earlier, it's only really engaged students that attend these forums. So I feel sometimes we're not capturing the average student's thoughts and feelings, which is something we should be looking into. And then continued buy-in from staff and the SU. As you all know, the SU changes every year. So I personally have seen how these staff forums have such a big impact and create active change within the university. But there's a new SU team every year, so it's hard to guarantee that. But I think just introducing the new team to the forums can secure that buy-in for the continued future. Yeah, so continued improvements. I think students always love incentives. Pizza and snacks is great to get them there. We also saw that there was still a demand for a hybrid option, access through Zoom and also in person. But however, DCU has a very limited classroom space or conference space in general to provide efficient hybrid options. We'll have to look into that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're maybe going to consider new recruitment campaigns to get a more diverse student engagement in our forums. So that's us. Any questions, of course, you can ask me and Aisling. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I was late earlier.
Don't worry at all, these things happen. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. There's some really, really fantastic projects. I'm quite excited. I know we have had a load of questions in. Unfortunately, we are gone a tiny bit over time already. So what I will ask of our speakers is we are going to go through a couple of questions, but we might try and be as succinct as possible to keep this to the next maybe 7 to 10 minutes so that we don't feed too much into the break. So we will still go for a break, but we're going to reduce that down to just 5 minutes and come back 5 minutes later. So very quickly, I think if I was to scan through all of the questions, one of the big things that has come up and was referenced in our last presentation was that about challenges and practical support. So I might direct it first to Celine, but I would invite everyone to come in if you have anything in relation to your own project. But Celine and Kate, there was a question posed to you at the beginning in relation to challenges in collaboration, how you overcame them, and the practical supports in place for your partnership programs in preparing staff and students in practicing that partnership starting out. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that very quickly in as so far as possible.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks for the question. The challenges, actually, we've had incredible buy-in. We had lots of good practice in place even back in 2018. So it was really consolidating and showing that good practice and then identifying gaps. The fact that it was cited within the 4-year strategy, I suppose, is a testament that we already had buy-in from the senior management team. And that was crucially important in terms of driving the culture from selective to a more universal culture of partnership. We've just had incredible buy-in from across all levels of the community, from our academic staff, our professional administration staff, and from the student body. Working closely with the SU and PGSU teams has been critically important, tapping into their networks as well, and promoting the culture via the student body. But I have to say, hand on heart, we haven't really hit huge challenges. Maybe if I was being perfectly honest, I did have to push to get the financial support and to get those bursaries in place, the funding model in place. I think some staff felt that if we move to a funding model, it might reduce students' motivation to volunteer, because there is a difference between volunteering and sharing their expertise and being rewarded for that. But when we showed context and impact, we did get the funding in place. And now that we've got successful products and we can show the outputs and impacts, it's actually building and supporting the funding model. So it's becoming a very sustainable model as a result. So I hope that answers the question.
Fantastic, absolutely, yes. And I think there was a comment in the chat as well about how it really goes beyond teaching and learning into management and research, which can typically be even more difficult again. So I think it's a huge compliment to the program and the project. Also, Kate and Aisling, especially seeing as you referenced the COVID-19, which, you know, at the very beginning of the pandemic, obviously the land in front of us changed quite dramatically when everyone moved online. How did you find working with your new partnership activities with that quick transition during the pandemic?
I think that's one of the reasons why we have maybe 9 or 12 elements that are in the framework, and really 3 that we've prioritized in the last year or so. There is some activity in some of the others. It has been challenging, but I think it has been even more crucial because we can't rely on conversations before and after class for lectures, for instance, to be able to talk informally to students. And so keeping those lines of communication open has been crucial. And I think that has lived in small items like those which come up in staff student forums about the bunching of assignments and so on. But that idea of partnership also lives in the big decisions as well. And I think one of the things that I hope DCU did well, but was certainly very important, was that in managing the COVID crisis, in making decisions about how the university would handle the COVID crisis, and thirdly, about how the university and the Students' Union would communicate to the student body in a consistent single voice around COVID was incredibly important. I would say, and I'd like Kate to comment on this, we didn't always get it right, but I think that the intent was there, that there would be this spirit of partnership between the university and the Students' Union. I know, for instance, obviously in trying to nurture partnership in an online environment, and more importantly in a crisis environment, partnership can get strained. But I think that the capacity for both the Students' Union to be able to express fully those frustrations and to be listened to by the university in that environment was, while the solution may not always be clear, the capacity for us all to talk openly together was most certainly there during COVID. I hope that answers the question. I'll let Kate just comment as well.
Yeah, I really agreed with what Aisling said, that having everything online really did limit conversations between students and staff. So the student staff forum obviously facilitated and create amazing feedback. And obviously we've never been through online learning before, so there was a lot of issues. And again, having the staff student forums, they were raised and then therefore addressed by the staff, which was incredible to see. And it gave our students, I know, which exactly what this framework is about. They felt like they were engaged and part of the decision-making process, which was incredible to see. There was obviously, Zoom comes with its own issues. Some people are very comfortable speaking on Zoom, others not. That was one issue that I remember facing. But I absolutely agree with everything else Aisling said, that it was a collaborative approach, and I think, like I said in my presentation, having the collaboration between the SU and Aisling's team and presenting them the issues that are raised to senior management really does give what we're saying as a student union that backup and data, and that it's not just a student union saying it, it is all students saying this across faculties, which was really effective, I thought.
Absolutely, thank you so much, and that's so valuable. And very last and least, before we go for a quick break, Peter and Aisling, and your project focusing on co-creation, and something I guess students would see an immediate benefit from, I guess a little different from some of the longer term strategic priorities more often student partnership programs. How did you find the co-creation process, both from a student staff point of view? Did the staff understand what the students need, and did the students find it easy to kind of communicate what they really wanted to see in this project?
I might let Peter answer that one first, Megan. I hope you're still there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. These exams coming up.
Yeah, we thought it was great because with the co-creation session there, the first one just before just before the Easter, I think. I mean, there was issues raised as well, like, so it wasn't entirely, oh, this was great. So like we gave her ideas on how it should be set up for next year as well, and those like concerns were heard straight away. Like there was never an issue, no kind of like back and forth. It was always, you know, the students' opinion was always very valued. So like I mean, it's great that the students are being heard and being included in how it should be set up for next year as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Sorry, Ashley, did you want to come in there?
No, I'm conscious you're tight on time, so if you're happy with Peter's answer, we can
I think it's a great answer. And just Kathryn, I am conscious that you didn't come back in there. If you do want to add anything up for a final reflection before we wrap up and go on our break, you're more than welcome to.
I think Celine pretty much captured it perfectly. We, like, in terms of obstacles, haven't had too many to date, but I think there's no sort of precedent for this. So in terms of navigating the project, it really was essential to have so much kind of enthusiasm and input from all staff across the board. And I think that's why it has been so successful, because kind of just working in the dark, you know, there was an idea, a project proposal, and then it was a lot of kind of collaborative figuring it out from there. So we're lucky so far, I think.
Well, the very, very best of luck with it in the future, I have to say. I'd love to be involved in all of these projects on the ground. They really do just seem so energizing and inspiring. And I'm sure that there's so many people in the room that will be able to take lessons from the work that you've done. So the very, very best of luck with all of those in the future, and congratulations on the work that you've already done.